Welcome to the Bella Grace podcast, where we are empowering you to embrace the beautiful grace found in recovering your authentic self by building a fun and sober life. So this summer, I have taken time off because I spend time with my family. My birthday is in June, and then my anniversary is in July. So I always take most of June and July off. So here we are, late July, mid-July. I don't even know what day of the month it is. But so we're back because I just had to share my friend's story with you guys. This is my friend Rosie.
Hi.
And Rosie and I met at a Bible study.
Yes.
With our friend Anna, and we've been friends for about 2 years now.
Yeah.
It flies by. It's crazy.
I know, and I feel like I've known you for a while now.
Yeah, I know. I feel like that was us with all of our friends from Anna's and all the groups. Is we were instant best friends.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think you were wearing those same glasses, and the whole time you were talking, it was your voice that captivated me. And your glasses, I was like, wow, those are some really bright glasses.
Yes. I tell people, if I go out in public and I'm not wearing them, people won't recognize me. Because either these are the funky purple, orangey ones that I wear sometimes. But yeah, if I don't have on my weird glasses, people don't recognize me.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this season, we've been telling stories of people who have built a sober life and who are having fun doing it. Rosie's story is a little bit different, and I had actually planned on doing this next season, but I didn't want her to lose her nerve. So here we are. No, Rosie's story is a little bit different because I know you'll have a drink here and there.
Yeah.
Maybe a margarita at dinner, what special occasion, whatever. But you've intentionally created a life that doesn't revolve around alcohol for you and your kids.
Yeah.
And it's super intentional. You do it on purpose, with a purpose. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about how you came to that choice and what has shaped you into being the person that you are and how you got where you are today.
Yeah. Well, let me see. It started when I was very young. I was I must have been in preschool.
Okay.
And this was actually in Mexico. So the first time I ever got drunk was when I was in preschool.
Wow.
I know.
That's crazy.
I know. That's child abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
because you were born in Mexico, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I was born in Mexico.
Okay.
And I was very young. So my dad had some friends over and they had a bottle of rompope. And I just looked at it and I thought it was juice, milk. So I had a taste of it and I thought it was so good because it's so sweet. And so I poured myself a glass and the next thing you know, I passed out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I remember the next day I woke up and I felt sick. I felt nauseous. I think I actually did throw up and my head was just hurting. I remember my parents arguing about that. My dad thought it was so hilarious that, I had gotten drunk. He thought it was funny and I couldn't believe it. It was at that age, you don't really comprehend a lot of right and wrong. So you're just oh, Yeah. So that's that. And my other bad memory about that I experienced with people being drunk or drinking was my dad. My dad used to constantly drink. He would drink every day with his friends, with family. And one day, actually it was one night, he showed up at our house in the middle of the night with my uncles, and they were all drunk and they all had guns. So
drunk people and guns don't
the
mix.
Worst.
Yeah.
I think just alcohol in general.
Yeah.
There's nothing right that you can do when you're drunk.
Yeah. Nothing but bad choices and lost inhibitions is what comes from alcohol.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, I show up at at my house in the middle of the night, drunk with guns, and they were really loud. They started arguing with my mom. They started just telling her things. I can't remember what they were fighting about. I just remember that they started hitting my mom.
Oh, wow.
They took her out to the backyard and they started kicking her. They started punching her. And it was a huge commotion. Like, we woke up and we went looking for my mom, and I saw her on the floor getting hit by my uncles. So at this point, I remember just being around and like screaming, like, stop. And it was me and my other sisters. Like, we were just in tears. Like, I think we might have been like in shock, because I remember we were just shaking, and I just like it. I mean, at that age, a child's brain can't comprehend so many things.
Yeah, no.
So it's a lot, and all that stuff can traumatize you forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it sometimes it feels like it was just yesterday because of like how traumatic it was. And
so raw, like the emotions around it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember looking back where my uncles were, because they were all just taking turns, hitting her. And I remember searching for my dad, and I'm like, where's my dad? Like, and he's just in the back standing with his arms crossed, like just there. Like, I feel like that for me was something I will never forget, because the person or the parent figure, or either your mom or your dad, the people who are supposed to protect you, guide you, help you, or sometimes the people that end up hurting you the most. So that's when I realized my dad was a coward.
Yeah.
Because it was just so like, I can't believe you're just standing there. Like, why aren't you doing something? Like, what is wrong with you, Yeah. After that, like, obviously my mom left him, and we hid for a while because my mom couldn't even move. Like, one of her friends picked her up, and because one of my sisters went to get help.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing that your mom left, because so many women stay stuck in that abusive cycle for so long.
Yeah.
And it wasn't your dad doing the kicking, but it was his brothers. So essentially it was him. He was allowing it.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really bad. Like, my mom left him, and I think it's because she couldn't even walk.
Yeah.
Like, my mom's friend and her husband had to carry her. And we stayed at their house for a few days. After that, we moved to a bigger town. And my dad searched for her, and he, finally found us and begged for forgiveness. And my mom, loving him, just decided to take him back. And
which is so typical.
Yes,
it is. I was in an abusive relationship in high school, and people always tell you, like, why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you just leave? Like, why did you stay in that situation? It's not that easy.
No, it's not.
Especially when you have kids.
Yeah. Of course. Definitely when you're like married, you have kids. You don't think about yourself anymore. You think about your children, and you think about their future. So I feel like that's what my mom did. Because I feel like, although my dad and his brothers did that, like, she was like, I love you. And I mean, I think it takes a lot to just want to work something out with someone who's been that hurtful to you.
Yeah.
So when they finally worked things out, my mom convinced my dad that if they were going to try to work things out, they had to move far from my dad's family. So they decided to come to the United States. Okay. And I was 7 years old then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we moved to Georgia, and we lived there for like 2 years. My dad got a DUI, and it was horrible. Like, I remember that, like, the cops there were so mean. They beat him up.
Oh no.
Like, I don't know if it was a racist thing or whatever, but he was badly hurt. And you would think that he would learn his lesson.
No.
Stop. No, he did not. No, he continued to drink. He became abusive again to my mom. And I remember that he would drink sometimes and we would just be hanging out with my dad. And I mean, we were young. I mean, we were like little. I mean, I was probably like 7 years old.
Yeah.
And we would take like sips of his beer. And he thought it was funny. He thought it was cool. It was like, because he was drinking alone.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have friends or anybody.
Yeah, because y'all had gone from Mexico to Georgia. Like, he didn't have his brothers anymore or his friends and family. So, yeah.
Yeah, so he thought it was funny. He would, you know, like when he would talk to people, he'd be like, yeah, they like beer. They take sips of my beer. Like it was something so cool. Like,
to be proud of.
Yeah, like, oh my God, my kids are just like me sort of thing, you know? So we were like, I guess just doing it. I don't know. And
because you don't know any better. And your dad is supposed to be the one taking care of you.
Yeah.
So if dad says it's okay, it's got to be okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you look up to them and you're looking to them for guidance. Yeah. Like, hey, like if he's allowing, it's okay. Like, you know, there's nothing wrong with this. Like, oh, my daddy's happy because I'm taking a sip of beer.
And
like,
that's the other part of it is you want to make your parents happy.
Yeah,
Children innately want to make their parents happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a lot of times they will do things that they know feel wrong just to make their parents happy.
Yeah.
Like it's so deeply embedded in our human nature. Because if you didn't make your parents happy in caveman days, then you got kicked out of the group or you got killed or whatever. And so it really is like a self-preservation thing that just lives in our brain.
We're seeking for their approval, their validation, their love.
Yeah.
And I mean, if it takes a sip of beer to have my dad smile at me, then okay. Yeah. You know, which is sad, but it's a harsh reality. So that's how it started. I mean, you know, like me tasting a beer and I was like, oh, it's refreshing. It's hot outside, so this feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so my, you know, like I said, my dad started getting abusive again. My mom didn't want to do that anymore. She left him and she found another man. And this man convinced my mom to move to Chicago. My mom had family in Chicago. She had brothers and sisters. So we left my dad and we moved to Chicago. Now, this man that my mom was dating was not a good person. Yeah. Because before we moved to Chicago, and when I met this man, I found it weird that he would always come to the house and would enter through the back door. He would never use the front door. I thought that was a little odd. Yeah. And so then...
even a kid can see that that is weird.
Like, why don't you use the front door? Like, what's wrong with the front door? It works. Yeah. Too. You know, but...
that is weird.
Yeah. And at that time, I was a little... maybe I was 8 years old. And that's when I started, like, wanting to do gelatin. Like, Jell-O's, like... and I would be in the kitchen, like, mixing. That's when I started to, like, want to cook and do things. I mean, you're a child. You like doing those things. Yeah. Yeah, so...
and that's right around the age where you start to, like, really identify who you are and what you like. And,
So I remember one night when he came through the back door, and I was like, hey, what intentions do you have with my mom? Like, why do you like her? Right? I know. I know you would think it would be cute. Like if I'm dating a guy and my daughter does that or my kids, I would be like, oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah. You know, like I'm not alone. Like I love that. And I think it's so cute. Yeah. And I mean, that's your parent. You have every right to know who this stranger is and why are you going through the back door, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I laugh because it's so totally you. That's your personality.
Yes. I don't even know. But... well, check this out. He got offended. Oh. He was so upset. He argued with my mom about that. He was like, I don't like that your child just asked me this. Why is she asking me this? Like, this is not okay. Like, why? He got like real offended. Yeah. And I thought it was odd. Like, I just didn't understand like what wrong I had done. Yeah. So my mom just told me not to tell him anything anymore. That was the first time that I was just like, but I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't say anything wrong, did I? So that was the first time I started, like, to feel like I had done something wrong. And, like, I said something wrong when I did not. I
Yeah.
didn't.
And that's probably when you started filtering what you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually that first experience of like, we think we're doing the right thing and we get ostracized or shunned or whatever, or like disciplined by our family for what we've done. Like, that's usually when we shift the way that we react to situations.
Yeah.
Is that first like big one
Yeah.
of like, I spoke up for my mom.
Yeah.
And she acted like I did something wrong.
Yeah.
And so did he.
Yeah. So yeah, that was it. And so my mom and him ended up moving to Chicago. So moving to Chicago was so different because we were in Georgia. It was more like country. It was calm. It was
quiet, slow pace. Yeah.
It was beautiful.
The
and
South.
Chicago was loud, was crazy, and it was just too much.
Yeah, because y'all were in the city, right? Like,
we were.
Mm-hmm.
We were. And at that time, we went to live in this basement. So Chicago has like buildings.
Yeah.
For people that don't know, Chicago has like duplexes or buildings, and there's like several layers to that building. Like there's like an apartment in the basement. There's a first floor apartment, second floor, and even third floor. Sometimes even attics become livable. So that's the way it works. And there's like a lot of people, a lot of houses, and just like
a small space.
Yeah. So that's the city life. And so we were living in this basement and we wouldn't go anywhere. I had this aunt who I always loved. She didn't have children, and to this day she can't have any. So she just loved me. And I mean, I needed that love and attention. So she would ask my mom if I could go and hang out with her and just,
Yeah.
So she would take me for the day, and I would go and like water her plants. She had a lot of little plants, and she would give me like a little sprayer to spray them and water them. I was her little plant.
Yeah, plant keeper.
Yeah, I was. So that's where my love of plants came from.
You gave me that plant over there in my kitchen, and she looks very pretty.
I just saw it and I was like, that's a nice plant. I can't remember.
You didn't remember giving it to me?
I just gave it to you like a month ago.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I am horrible. Yeah,
you did. I know. I was so worried about her when I was on vacation because we were gone for a week, and I water her on Fridays. And so now I started watering her on Saturdays because we didn't come back until Saturday, and I forgot to ask to say his boyfriend to water her on Friday. Yeah, so she's getting watered on Saturdays now.
Well, you can water her like every 2 weeks too.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't matter as long as like
the soil doesn't
every
get too
3
dry.
weeks too. Okay. Yeah, because they're indoors, so they don't have a lot of like heat
to absorb the water.
Yeah. So that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's alive.
Yes, she's doing good. She's pretty
and well, thriving.
I know. I want to get like a stand so that she can be in the podcast right here instead of the little fake.
Yes, a little.
I have a real tree right here.
Have you named her?
No, I haven't. To say it was like, I said, we've got to name the plant. And to say, I said, why? It's going to die. And I'm like, it's not my fault. Because nothing really stays alive in this house because there isn't a whole lot of windows. Mm-hmm. And like, this is the only window that actually lets sunlight in.
They need a lot of natural light.
Yeah. And I'm like, it's not my fault stuff dies in this house. It's the fact that there are no windows.
It's the fact that there's other two individuals in here that can help things stay alive.
They don't. So she's doing good.
That's so funny. Well, I'm glad that she's alive.
Yes. Yeah. I love it. It like brings nature into the inside.
Bigger.
I know.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
It's gotten taller. Big. That's why I lifted it up a little bit because the leaves were touching the counter. Okay. And I was like, oh, I need to move it. I need to get like a standing pot for it and stick it like in front of the window or something. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I'm glad. Yeah. I'm glad. So that's where my love for plants came from
your aunt.
Yeah. I would water them, and I don't know. I guess because I also grew up in a little ranch in Mexico, and my grandma had like all these plants. It was like a paradise.
Yeah.
So it just made me feel like a little bit of home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then when I would go with my aunt and her husband, I would sometimes stay over. So one day, I don't remember where I would sleep. I just remember that day because it felt very unnatural.
Mm-hmm.
I remember waking up in the middle of their bed. Like he was on my left, she was on my right, and I would sleep in the middle. She got up to use the restroom, and when she got up, I was like, oh, I felt as she left. And a few minutes or maybe even seconds later, I felt my uncle's hand touching me. And when that happened to me, I froze because you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
You don't know what's being done or what's happening. It's like your body just freezes. Even I feel like you even stop breathing.
Mm-hmm.
You're like
What
you're
is going on?
paralyzed.
Yeah.
It's too much. You can't process.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. Yeah. And I couldn't believe what was happening. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should like pretend to be asleep or get up. I didn't know what to do until I just like, okay, I'm just going to like get up, like just get up. And I did. I got up. After that, I didn't see him the same way that I did or my aunt. I just had like this nasty feeling. I just felt sadness.
Yeah.
I felt hurt. I felt anger. I hated him.
Yeah.
So I didn't tell anybody, but I didn't want to go back with her anymore. And my mom was like, why don't you want to go with your Thea? You love her. You love being over there. And I would just say, no, I just want to stay here and play with my sisters, because you're sometimes like, your parents or certain people don't teach you how to
speak up.
Yeah, they don't teach you these things. Mm-hmm. My mom never told me about, hey, like no one should touch you there. You don't show your private parts, or this is not okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of these things happen in the Hispanic community because a lot of parents are either shy or they just don't know how to have these conversations with their girls or even boys.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's true. I have a cousin she's older than me and she was in her 30s the first time that she said, do you have a pad? And I said, no, I don't have any pads. I haven't worn a pad. Like I rarely have pads. And I said, I have a tampon. She's like, I don't know how to use a tampon. I was like, what? You're 30 and you don't know how to use a tampon?
Yeah.
But it was because my aunt never had that conversation with her. Like, we didn't know about sex. We didn't know about anything. Like, I had creepy uncles, family members, whatever, like, that my mom would be like, don't sit by yourself with them. Don't sit on their lap. Like, don't be alone with them. But that was as far as the explanation went. Mm-hmm. It was never like, if like they do X, Y, Z, tell me, or don't go around them because of blank, like whatever. Like there was never an explanation.
Yeah.
And with most Hispanic families, there's never even that statement of like, don't go around them.
Yeah.
It's never spoken about.
I don't know if it's because they're not taught or because they just don't know or any better, or they just don't want. I'm still confused about that, honestly.
Yeah.
So
and I know my grandma. Sorry, but I know my grandma was physically abused by my grandpa all the time. Like it was a seriously abusive relationship. And so part of me wonders if my grandma never spoke up about the things that was happening because she feared for her life and the life of her children. But the problem with that is that then it got passed on to the next generation, and the next generation of boys thought that it was acceptable.
Yeah.
And it happened to my cousins. And then my cousins were the ones that were like, no, it stops here. And I had the same mentality. So with my daughter, I would tell her, like, no one touches you here. Not even me. I'm not even welcome here.
Yeah.
Unless you need help from me with something, but you have to ask for it. So like she started wiping herself really young, like because she wasn't comfortable with anybody touching her. And she's still the same way. Like she does not like her bits touched.
I have these conversations too with I have a 11-year-old daughter and 8-year-old son.
Yeah.
So for me, it is very important to talk about these things. And I don't go into a lot of detail because I know that I don't want to traumatize them.
Yeah. There's a time and a place,
right.
an age to allow them into those parts of your life.
Of course. But I always let my daughter know, like, hey, that's your body. If it doesn't feel right, it's not right. Like, those are your private parts. No one should see them. No one should touch them. Just like, other people have their parts. You don't touch them. You don't see them. That's not right. That's your body. That's you. Like, you don't allow that. That's not okay.
Yeah.
So I always talk to her, and the older she gets, the more information I give her.
Yeah.
So, everything according to her age. Yeah. Because I don't want to just scare her, and my daughter can be nervous.
Yeah.
And shy
She's
sometimes.
She's a little bit timid. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to freak her out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it is important to make sure that they know that, because you don't want her to be in high school at a high school party and some boy is making out with her, and then she feels like she has to do stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I've always told my daughter.
Yeah.
You can say no matter how far into the situation you are.
Yep.
You can be completely naked with somebody and still say no.
Yep.
It's your body. It's your choice. No one gets to touch you anywhere unless you want it.
Yeah. And that's the same thing that I say to my daughter, but not like that. I'm more like...
Mine's a teenager. Hers is 11.
Mine's the preteen. She's not there yet.
Yeah. Not there quite yet.
So for me, I'm always like, hey, no one can force you to do something you do not want to do. You don't want to do it, you don't have to. But she's like, but my brother wants to play with me, and I want to play with him. I want to play Barbies. And I said, well, you don't want to play with him, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You're not forced to, because I'm teaching her right now that she has decisions and choices. She doesn't have to do things she doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Because that's when kids feel like they have to try to please the other grown-ups around them, or what is my mom going to say if I don't? Or it's just something that they don't want to disappoint.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be punished for not. So... It's something I always try to talk to my kids about, and just in everything, because I'm afraid because of what happened to me.
Yeah.
And although the rape didn't happen, he just touched me inappropriately and it was very uncomfortable. That still did something to me, because from that day on, I felt just angry. I was just sad. I just felt I was disgusted. Yeah. So I stopped going to my aunt's house, and, my mom never even asked why. She was just like, oh, okay. I would question, why my daughter doesn't want to go somewhere or be around somebody.
Yeah, because that's a telltale sign. If they suddenly don't feel comfortable being around a certain person, or suddenly change their normal routine of going somewhere, visiting someone, that's a huge red flag. Yeah. Of potential grooming, sexual abuse, inappropriate touching, and I know you said the rape didn't happen, but that doesn't matter. The fact that you were violated. Yeah. Your trust was violated by someone that you trusted and respected and cared for. That. And I feel some victims don't come forward. Some survivors don't come forward because they're well, they didn't do really X, Y, Z. Anything, but they just touched my boob, or and I was a kid, so there wasn't really anything there. Yeah, doesn't matter.
That's still harassment. That's still some type of abuse.
It is. It's a violation of your being, and if you may not realize it at the time, but that sort of stuff affects you for years and years and years. It affects your ability to trust, your ability to love, your ability to be intimate, your everything, your ability to feel. Sometimes sexual abuse victims will just totally numb. Yeah. And so they never really love anybody. They're married, they have kids, but there's a barrier between them and their loved ones because they're afraid of getting hurt like that again.
Yeah, their coping mechanism just like, I guess, puts like a wall or something.
It's a
Like,
protective
it is.
mechanism.
Yeah.
That their body is like, their mind is like, no, you can't get close to me because the last person that got too close,
This far,
hurt me and violated
it definitely
me.
causes trust issues with everything and everyone. And then it just makes you think like, did I do something? Like, was I,
Yeah.
It's just a lot of things, and especially as a child, that you're still developing. Like your body is still developing, your mind, you're still discovering the world. So yeah, it's definitely something traumatic.
Yeah.
So after that happened, my mom and my her boyfriend at the time, we ended up moving somewhere else, and that's when I first realized that my sister was always really tired. And she would tell me I didn't sleep good last night. And I would just be like, well, why? We were like, maybe at this time we were probably like 9 years old. And I'm like, well, why? I was probably 8 or 9. And I'm like, well, why? And she's like, well, because this happened. And then she started telling me about the sexual abuse that my mom's boyfriend was causing. And I just looked at her and I didn't know what to say. I was just like what? And I remember saying like, you have to tell my mom. Like, you have to let her know this is happening. And she's like, no, but she's not going to believe me. And I said, you have to tell her, because if you don't tell her, like, he's going to keep doing it. And the reason why I said that is because this was before like this happened to her. I already knew like what had happened to me. I never told her about it because I felt shame and I felt nasty, right? You always have that after that. So, but I was like, well, you have to tell her. If you tell her, I'm going to back you up. I'm going to tell her that I know too. And she's like, no, she just won't believe me. And I said, okay. So our conversation stopped. So then, and it just went on like this for a while. And she would tell me, and there came a point where I just got fed up of knowing that this was going on and she wasn't speaking up, And at this point, I felt like I wanted to say something, but I couldn't. Because although I was a calm child and I was like, I wasn't a troublemaker, I had already gotten the, how do you say it? When people know that you're the child that says things, that you're the child that has no filter. So if I said something, it would make me look like the liar. It would make me look like the crazy one, because I had already gained that title.
Yeah.
That,
and I can't think of the word either, but all I can think of is like in Spanish, she's always the chiflada one that like speaks up, like she wants to have attention, so she like speaks up about everything, and you can't really believe what she's saying because she's probably just doing it because she doesn't like someone, or like she's
like she's just like, for me it was like, oh, she's just being Rosa, like that's just Rosa, like, So that's how I felt. And I was like, I can't say it because, one, it's gonna make me look like a liar. They're not gonna believe me. My sister's, if she's not saying it, she's not gonna have my back either.
She's not gonna admit it. Yeah.
No. So at one point, I remember telling her, if you're not gonna say anything to my mom, then you need to stop telling me. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah.
And she didn't tell me anymore. But when we would play, she would and we would get up, have breakfast, and start playing. We're children. We're still like 8, 9. We're girls. We're playing with Barbie dolls. And we would just start playing. And then I would just look at her and she would just look at me. And it's like, we wouldn't even communicate like verbally. We would just look at each other and I knew what was going on. And we would just continue to play. It was like this sadness, like, that just, Yeah. So at this point, my sister had stopped wanting to play. And she didn't want to play anymore. She would just lay down sometimes on the sofa with a blanket and fall asleep.
Yeah.
And I think that was like her way of shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
Because we didn't have safe adults.
Yeah.
My mom wasn't going to believe her. I couldn't do anything for her. And she stopped playing dolls.
Yeah.
And her boyfriend was very abusive. He was verbally abusive. He would hurt my mom. He would hurt my sisters. He hated me. I was the problem child to him.
But he knew he couldn't do anything
He
to
couldn't
you
mess with
because
me.
you would speak up, because you spoke up to him that very first day. Like,
Oh my God, he hated me.
yeah. And I think that was the point we were trying to make before.
Yeah.
Was like, he knew you would speak up. Like, you weren't going to keep quiet.
Mm-mm. So, I hated him too.
That's all right.
Well, he at this time, like my mom, we had a baby sister, and she was maybe like a year or 2 years old, maybe around that age. And she would have bruises all over her body.
Oh.
She would have patches of hair missing.
Oh.
He would do that to her.
Oh no.
Yeah, his I don't remember why or how, but like his way of like getting us to go to the room or have us go to the room in the middle of the night was for him to say, "Hey, your sister needs her diaper changed." And that's how my sisters would go in there. Like some of my sisters would go in there, and that's when it would happen.
Yeah.
He tried to do that to me once, and I was playing. I would remember that I was so upset because he was calling me to go change her, diaper or pull up. And he closed the door when I went in, and I just looked at her and I was like, I got so angry because he took me out from playing to go change my sister's pull up, and I'm thinking, well, aren't you the adult?
Yeah, you do it.
Yeah, no. So I turned around and I'm like, why are you calling me to change her pull up? Like, why can't you do it?
Yeah.
I guess that took him by surprise, and he was like, he didn't know what to do or to say. But now that I think about it, that's what he was trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
That was his strategy.
Yeah.
So I walked out of the room. Nothing happened to me. My sister at the time, she was also very chunky because he would force her to eat. During dinner time, like she would cry because she wasn't hungry sometimes, and he would force her to eat. He would like, no. He would make my mom make her eat, or one of my sisters. It was like a very toxic thing.
Yeah.
So I would get angry because I would just eat and I would watch this BS, and I hated it. I was that child that I was like, I have to say something. I have to do something.
Yeah.
And I got up once and I was like, can't you see she doesn't want to eat? Why are you forcing her to eat?
Yeah.
Oh, I got punished. I was sent to my room. I was that child. I don't know where that courage came from. I don't know. I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I did that.
Yeah. Well, it
It's
came
crazy.
from the fact that you love your sisters.
Yeah.
And you didn't want what had happened to you to happen to them.
Yeah.
You also couldn't control what you probably knew was happening.
Yeah.
And the one thing you could do was speak out on the other little things that he was doing.
Yeah.
And try to raise the red flag of like, this isn't right.
Yeah.
And hopefully like that would lead to your mom like seeing what he was doing. But
I think my mom was just scared of him because she wouldn't speak up. it's like he controlled her also. He manipulated her. So she would just allow it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. She was just like, look the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I think I was 9 years old. I started sleeping with a knife under my pillow every night. You know how every person, like every mom or everyone has their favorite knife. Like I have my favorite knife that I use to chop vegetables, fruit, whatever, and because it's the best. It's like sharp and it's like the favorite knife. I have my
favorite knife too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I would use my mom's favorite knife because it was like sharp and it was nice and it was just like a weapon for me, like to defend myself. And I would sleep with that knife under my pillow every single night. And every morning or every time my mom was home, she would be like, where's my knife? I can't find it. I would run and I would just put it in the kitchen. I had become that child where I was like, I am going to hurt him if he tries to hurt me.
Yeah.
Also because we would sleep on a mattress and it was like all of us in a row. And then I would sleep on the edge or sometimes in between my sisters. But that knife was always under the pillow. Because I said, if he tries to hurt me or any of my sisters, he's going to get it. I'm not going to allow this to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from either. Because I'm not a crazy child. I wasn't a crazy child, just so you guys know I'm not.
No, you're just a defender of the ones that you love.
Yeah.
Like that's, you got hurt. So what, the thing with your uncle happened before all this stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. So
everything, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I already had that anger inside of me. Like, you're not going to mess with me or my sisters. Like, I guess I also took it upon myself because I realized that my dad was not in my life in this moment. My mom would look the other way. So I just felt like I had to take that role of like, I don't have a dad. We don't have anyone to protect us. Like someone's gotta like protect me and my sisters.
Where are you in the like?
I am the second oldest.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I don't know if that even matters.
It does. It
but
does.
for me, I was like, okay, someone has to do something because no one does anything.
And was your older sister the one that would go to sleep on the couch and like just totally dissociate?
I don't want to share that.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I don't because, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine.
I can tell you it was some of my sisters.
Yeah.
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 So, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't ever ask them exactly what happened.
Yeah. It's their story.
I get curious sometimes, but I don't ask.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't share because it's like, I think it's best that I just don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't want to force them because it's painful for me, even for me to just know. So, yeah, but the reason why I'm talking about this is because I realized that he did drugs. He did coke. He had a drug addiction.
I was going to ask if he was drinking or doing drugs.
I don't know about the drinking because I don't remember that, but I do remember that he would leave the restroom door open and he had like something and he was doing it on
up his
nose.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know at the time. I mean, because you're a child, you don't know. But now as an adult, I understand many things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's when I realized that he did drugs.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if my mom ever did drugs with him. I have no idea, but nor do I ask because I don't want her to know that I know. Like, there's just certain things I guess we just don't
talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, after a while, my sisters and I were lashing out. We couldn't hold it in anymore. Mm-hmm. I would get in trouble in class. I was a good student. I had good grades. But I would just get angry. I would just start fighting with this other girl that I didn't even hate. I just knew we would just fight with each other. And the teacher would send us both to the hall, one on each side of the door. And it's crazy because we would, me and the kids who would be out in the hall we already knew each other because we were always sitting out in
We're
the hall.
always the troublemakers. You're like, oh, you're out here again? Cool, me too. What'd you do?
Yeah, and other teachers would get shocked and surprised because they were like, what? Like, what happened? Because they knew that I was a sweet child and that I had good grades.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't understand. I didn't even understand. But I guess after a while, like, even you just can't hold it in anymore.
It all bubbles over.
Yeah, like you hold it in so much that you just can't anymore, and you just start like exploding or letting it out, even on people that have nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you start lashing out.
Yeah, that's why I always tell people, I'm like, you have to confront the emotion. Like, you have to.
Mm-hmm.
The anger, the sadness, the whatever. Like, my daughter's been super stressed out this week. And I'm like, you got to get those emotions
Let it out.
Like, you've got to get them out. Because if they sit in there, this is what happens. Like, they start to spew out or they'll leak out onto your friends and family. Like, a little at a time. Like, little microaggressions, little, like,
not only
blow-ups here and there.
I feel like your body stores that too.
Mm-hmm.
And it causes diseases. Yeah. It causes, like, so many, like, unhealthy things in your body. And I just believe in that. Like, it damages, like, your body in some way or another.
We hold sexual abuse and, like, sexual secrets from the family in our pelvic area.
Wow.
Yeah.
That explains my surgery.
That's why I brought it up, but I didn't want to say it.
No, I did. And seriously, we'll talk about this in a bit, but we'll get there. But I've been thinking about that forever.
Yeah.
But
we hold it in our pelvic area as women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it.
And with men, it's usually like the gastrointestinal, the colon.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I was getting in trouble in school. Sometimes I wouldn't even get in trouble in school. Sometimes I would just ask my teacher if I can go see the counselor. And I think it's because in school they teach you that the counselor's there to listen to you, that if you ever want to talk to a counselor or someone, they make you feel like that she's safe, she'll keep your secrets. Well, at this time, I would ask my teacher if I could go to the counselor's office. And I would just go there and I wouldn't talk.
Just sit, yeah.
Yeah, like I would just sit. Like I would just go in there and hang out. It's like I just needed like a mental break, or just I didn't want to like do work. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to sit. Like I just wanted to sit. Mm-hmm. It's so...
you needed a safe place.
Yeah.
Because home wasn't safe.
Yeah. So one day when I went and sat there, I realized that my older sister came out of there. And I was like, what are you doing here? And she's like, nothing. What are you doing here? And I said, nothing, just sitting here. Well, I was like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
I bet she's thinking, did you tell? You're thinking, did you tell? What the?
I never asked her. Yeah. and until this day, I don't know. I just know that this is my version of the story.
Yeah.
But
no telling what she was doing there. Maybe she was discussing her schedule. Maybe
she was just getting a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I really don't know. Yeah. But we were both just there with So the way everything went down was that one of my sisters started crying. And she started crying because her feet would hurt. We were so poor. We had hand-me-down clothes all the time. We didn't have toys. The toys we had were like, I don't know. To be honest, I can't remember what the dolls look like. I probably had no head and like hair messed up.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But we didn't have the nicest clothes. We didn't have like the nicest shoes. One of my aunt bought us shoes. Yeah. And I remember those shoes. Like I thought they were like, oh my God, the coolest, warmest shoes ever. And my sister was complaining that her feet would hurt. And that's because her shoes didn't fit her anymore. Mm-hmm. And my mom didn't have money to purchase new shoes. So it was like, that was her excuse. And I guess that was like it. And I remember the teacher called me and to go talk to my sister because she wouldn't stop crying. And I just remember going to sit next to her and sitting on her right side and just going like this, like she wouldn't stop crying. And I was just like this, like, oh my God, like, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess based on my behavior, the way we were acting, I'm assuming they were already making notes because now as a teacher, I'm a preschool teacher, so
yeah,
now
you pick up on those
yes,
things. Yeah.
yes,
And you're trained to pick up on those cues.
yes, of course, everything we have to write down when the child is dirty. If we notice that they came in and they're having a bad day, we have to write that down.
Yeah.
And if we notice they're tired, they don't want to eat, we have to write those things down because after a while it becomes a pattern. And after a while there's something going on and we have to report that. So I think they had already picked up on all those little things, on my behavior, my sister's behavior, like there was something odd. So they sent CPS to like my home.
Yeah.
And they sent cops. And when that happened, I felt like, I was like, oh my God, I don't know who did it, but I'm glad.
Relief.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God. Like,
it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's over. Like, oh my God. Yeah. Because, at this point, I was getting punished every night. I was being sent to my room without eating dinner because he would tell my sisters and me to call him daddy. First of all, you're not my dad. I'm not going to call you dad.
Yeah.
And I would tell him, no, you're not my dad. I don't have to call you dad. And whenever I would call him dad was just so that I could just, I guess, I would just give in.
Yeah.
Just give in because I was exhausted too, of like constantly fighting too.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, thank God, you know? So he finally like got kicked out of the house. Then he got locked up. We had to go get help. We were sent to I guess a therapist or a psychologist or social worker. And we would go every week. And then at some point my mom told us, you need to stop talking about it. You need to start lying. Say all this is not true. And we knew that wasn't right. And we didn't understand why she was asking us that. So we were like, why? You know? And it was because she was going to court. And she manipulated us. She's like, if you don't stop talking about this, they're going to separate you guys. We're never going to see each other. Like, you need to stop saying the truth. Just lie. Just say it's not true. And I remember that my older sister would get really upset because she and my other sisters were having to get interviewed. So I remember telling like certain sisters, especially that one sister, like, you tell the truth.
Yeah.
Tell the truth. And she would.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's so hard.
Yeah.
It takes so much courage to speak up and tell the truth, especially when you have someone telling you not to.
Especially when you have one of your parents or your mom telling you like, hey, stop, don't say that, don't do that. Like you want to please your mom because you love your mom or your parents and you want to listen and obey, right? But sometimes you're like, well, crap, I'm, like,
the heart can only handle so much hurt. And it sounds like at that point, all of you were done with it.
Yeah.
And your sister was like, to hell with whatever happens. I've got to get this out.
So my mom started to treat that one sister differently because she would say, oh, you seduced him.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no,
pretty
it's
typical.
your fault. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your fault.
Unfortunately, that's pretty typical. And I did my entire, I don't know if I've probably told you this, but I did my entire first master's thesis, because I start my second master's program in August. I'm insane.
Yeah.
My first master's thesis was on sexual abuse victims and how that affects their adulthood, like whether or not they'll drink, be prostitutes, or do drugs as a result of the sexual abuse. And all of my research found that if it all depends on how the child's what's it called? How they were accepted or rejected by their family when they disclosed the abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones whose families said, well, it was your fault. You must have seduced them. You had to have been doing something wrong. You caused this, basically, is that one set of people.
You asked for it.
You asked for it.
Mm-hmm.
And those people tend to then go on and struggle with mental health issues, depression, anxiety, drinking disorders, drug use disorders, like prostitution, whatever it is. Like the ones who are not accepted when they disclose are the ones that tend to struggle with stuff into adulthood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, and I see it.
Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah. Well, my sister, she was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Not only by my mom's boyfriend, but by my mom. I mean, I can just imagine how alone she felt.
Yeah.
And unsafe, because, I mean, we all felt it, but I felt like for her,
it was different.
It was different. Yeah. Because I didn't get, like, sexually abused like she did. But I know how that feels like. So my mom started pushing her away. And she started overcompensating for the behavior she was giving to her with me. Like if my sister wanted a cookie, she would say, no, there's no cookies for you because you're a bad girl. She would be like, here, Rosie, you have a cookie. Yes, you. That put me in between.
Yeah.
It was horrible. I hated it. Mm-hmm. My mom did that to us, to me, to her. It was hurtful.
Yeah.
So, my mom had to work like 3 jobs now in order for her to be able to pay the rent. And, it was 7 of us girls. My dad was not present in our lives. And the city can be very expensive. My mom wasn't getting any kind of help. So we wouldn't see her. So at this point, I had already learned to cook. At 9-10 years old, I was already cooking for my sisters. My older sister was in charge of making sure that we were doing what we were supposed to. I would cook. My other sisters would mop, wash dishes. We would all look after each other. Mm-hmm. So it's we were forced to grow up.
Yeah.
So fast at a young age. And we became very those kids who are very independent. Mm-hmm. And so then when I was 11 years old, that's when my dad came back into our lives. And he tried to work things out with my mom, but my mom was in a different state of mind. Her world was just different now. She didn't want to be with my dad because he used to be an alcoholic, and I guess she was afraid of going back to that lifestyle. Mm-hmm. My dad at this point had already taken been to those
AA meetings.
Yes.
Yeah. And AA, rehab, whatever. He'd done the work. Yes. Is what we say.
Yeah. he had done his work. And I think he had started going to a Christian church or some type of spiritual help. Yeah. So, but my mom didn't want any of that. So she just, didn't want to get back with him. And I remember thinking I really don't care at this point if they get back together or not, because we already been through a lot. So to me, it's it wouldn't make any difference. Like, you know, you hurt us too. Like, there's nothing good there for us either.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Once I was like 12 years old, my mom had this other boyfriend. He was a lot younger than her. And I was watching some movie and he just came over and brought beer. And I had a beer with him. I started drinking. I remember passing out. I'm just glad that he didn't take advantage of me. He didn't.
Yeah.
But there's this picture of me like drinking that beer that day. And I recently found it, and my daughter's 11. So when I saw that picture, it just took me back, and I said to myself, oh my God, I was 12 years old there. Like, and I was drinking with my mom's boyfriend. What if something would have happened?
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe she put me through that.
Yeah.
Like, I was like hurt, and I was like, oh my God. Like, now as a mom, I'm like,
you couldn't imagine
alcohol and me with a stranger. Like, I didn't even know him. I think it was probably the like second time I've met him. Like, and she wasn't home, and I was just like, oh my God. Well, yeah, that's when alcohol came back into my life. Mm-hmm. When I was 13 years old, about to be 14, I moved with my dad to Texas. And when I moved with my dad, like, I'm gonna go back a little bit. When I was 12 years old, around that time when my dad came back into our lives, he wanted to help my mom with us. Like, he wanted to take some of the girls with him, and so that my mom can stay with some, so that they would be, you know, like, help each other out, basically, with us. So my older sister and two younger siblings went with him. I stayed with the sister that's after me and two other, you know, other young ones. Mm-hmm. And I remember wanting to go, and my sister told me, like, no, you have to stay. Like, one of us have to stay. Yeah. And I told her, no, but I want to go. Like, I don't want to be here. And she's like, no, you know that one of us has to stay because one of us has to look after them. And I was like, I hated that I was staying. Like, I wanted to go with my dad. Yeah. I didn't want to live here, you know, anymore. So I stayed. My mom dated that guy. They were fighting all the time. And finally, when she wasn't with him, I was like 13 years old. I ended up moving with my dad. It's like we sort of switched. Like, the sisters that were with him in Texas came back to Chicago. Some of us came. It's like we just switched. Yeah. I came to live with my dad. And I remember being far away from my mom and everything I knew. Like, I just felt weird being in a different environment, in a different state. It was just like, I didn't know how to be. I didn't know how to act. And I didn't realize that that was part of all the trauma that I was like healing from. So I stopped talking to my mom for a year. I didn't want, like, she would call and ask to speak to me and my sisters, and some of them would. I wouldn't. I didn't want to talk to her at all. Yeah. And I guess it was because, like, of everything that she put.
You're mad at her.
I was. Yeah. I was like, I didn't want to talk to her. Yeah. Because I was holding so much. So after a while, I talked to her and I told her how I felt. Like, I wasn't happy about all the stuff that she put us through. And ever since then, we just became, like, really close, and we cried. And, you know, like, our relationship just, like, well, she actually became a mom. She became a friend to me. But after, you know, I was in Texas for a while. And I was 15 years old now. I was in high school. And, you know, in high school, that's when you start drinking. you start partying. You start...
Especially in Texas.
Yes. I mean...
It's a rite of passage in Texas. Of like, if you can't drink a beer, you're not truly Texan.
Yeah, like, you are not... Yeah. You... Who are you?
Yeah.
Well...
You belong in California.
Oh, my God. Well, I would drink a beer here and there because I live with my dad.
Yeah.
Like, there might have not been, like, food, but there was always alcohol in my house. Mm-hmm. So, at this time, like, my older sister and I would fight a lot because my sister was holding on to a lot of things.
Yeah.
And she wasn't well. I wasn't either, but the way that I saw my life was like, I'm 15 years old. I'm a teenager. I'm going to try to live the best life that I can because of everything that I've been through. And I just want to be normal.
Yeah.
I want to just be normal, a normal teenage girl. So my older sister would act like she was my mom sometimes. And that would get on my nerves. And sometimes she would be so mean to me. And it was because of what my mom did to us.
Yeah.
She had like that grudge and stuff against me because she thought my mom just favored me over her because, you know.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's not healthy at all.
No.
Healthy, like, it's sad.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I would have a beer here and there. And I didn't have, like, a drinking problem because I wouldn't get drunk. I would just have a beer.
Yeah.
And all my friends would drink, like, you know, we would have parties. I will have a beer or two, and it was okay, nothing, you know. But when I was about to be, like, a month before my birthday, I got super wasted at a club that I got. I sneaked it.
Hey, I always the same way. We were friends with an owner of a club, and so we were like 16, 17 getting in. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And so Lord. Yeah, so it was very bad. I got drunk, and at this time, like, I lost my virginity.
Night. Yeah, I remember us having that conversation. You were telling me and my daughter about it. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's what alcohol does to you. It completely lowers your inhibitions. Yeah. It takes down walls that you normally wouldn't allow down. Yeah. Like, it tells you that something is right, that you know is wrong. Like, it's just,
That night is honestly a blur because I remember it's in bits. Yeah. And maybe it's just that I don't want to remember, but that happened. But the next day, I remember that I was just like, it was something surreal. Like, I felt like I wasn't myself. I felt like I was there, but I wasn't there. Like, I felt such sadness in my heart. Like, because I guess as a girl, you just never imagine that your first time will be like that. You know, especially with someone you don't know. Yeah. So that was that. That was the alcohol. Because if I would have not been drinking, that wouldn't have happened. No. Yeah. It wouldn't have happened. And yeah. So then that's that. I continued to drink throughout high school and go to parties. But at this time, my sister she just had it out for me. Like, she called my mom from Chicago. And she's like, you need to get your daughter because she's out of control. She is, like, not coming home. I think she's on drugs. She doesn't listen to my dad. She is just out of control. My sister was trying to get rid of me. Yeah. I was not on drugs. I must have been drinking, but I didn't have, like, an alcohol problem. Like, I wasn't getting drunk all the time. That was the time that I got drunk.
That one time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wasn't always, like, doing that because at that time I had a job too. Yeah. And I was going to high school. So I knew that my sister was just out for me. Like, she just hated my guts. And it hurt me so bad. So and my dad and I would fight because my older sister would tell him like, yeah, Rose is doing this, like she's not doing that, she's just, out of control. So my dad will fight with me, and I would fight with my dad. I would tell my dad things that no one would. I would be like, yeah, you're an alcoholic, like there's no food in the house, but there's alcohol here, like don't try to tell me what to do. Like I would be that child again.
Yeah.
And he hated it. He wouldn't hit me, but he hated it. So he would start drinking.
Yeah. Sorry.
Like he would drink more and more and more. Like that was his way of like coping. Like, of like, oh, I can't
do anything to her. And so I'm going to drink.
So and he wouldn't talk to me and I wouldn't talk to him. And I would just be like, whatever, I don't care. I went to live with my mom. And when I went with her, she was dating someone else. So now this man, like, I was like, oh, okay. So, I mean, I ended up going to Chicago and I agreed to go only because I knew that it didn't matter what I said, what I did. My sister had already made up her mind. She had convinced my dad that I was like just crazy and out of control. So I ended up leaving. And, she had this boyfriend. And at first he seemed nice, but then like on New Year's Eve, like he got drunk. He didn't know how to control his liquor. Like, so he started fighting with my mom, getting abusive with her. And I was so mad. It's like when your body has like finally gotten out of like, your body has already healed. You have done some healing and you see things that trigger you from your past. Either you freeze or you like start shaking. I felt like my knees were so weak. Like when I saw what I was seeing, like him being abusive, verbally abusive, like pushing my mom and him drunk on my birthday. And I just felt so helpless. Yeah. And I screamed at my mom and I was like, is this what you wanted me to be here for? Like this crap again? You haven't learned, haven't you? She was just like she didn't even know what to say. And I was so angry at that man. I was like, it's like I was disappointed again. Yeah. Yeah. It's like I couldn't believe it. Well, my mom, he had like such a bad drinking problem. Like he would drink all the time and every weekend, like they would fight every weekend. It's like,
because that's what alcohol does too.
Yeah.
It brings up all the bad emotions and then there's happy drunks and there's angry drunks.
Oh my God.
The angry drunks are usually the ones that have something from the past that is like now like bubbling over. And...
What about the people who drink and they cry? What does that mean?
I forgot about the criers.
Oh my God, yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. Well,
all of that, like alcohol really like it drowns, it tamps down the part of your brain that keeps the secrets bottled up. So when you drink, that cover comes off and whatever secrets there are, they come pouring out. And the happy drunks are the ones that actually talk about their feelings when they're sober and deal with it when they're sober so that it doesn't come out when they're drunk.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's like it reduces your inhibitions. And so that part of your brain that usually like says, no, these secrets can't come out. When you drink, that lid goes off and the stuff comes pouring out of you. Yeah. Whether it's tears, anger, like resentment, whatever it is, like it just comes crashing out.
Like there's no way of holding it back. Yeah. Like, oh, there you go. Alcohol just gives you a green pass to just let it out.
Yeah, just do it. Yeah. And I guarantee you, like, I would almost guarantee that your experience the one time you got drunk was your subconscious way of taking control of your own body and saying, like, I can do whatever I want, even sleep with this random stranger.
Yeah.
Like there's always some route.
I was
to
so
what we
careless.
do
I
when
remember
we're
feeling
drunk.
so careless.
Because you had to be so careful your entire childhood.
Yeah.
Like you had to stay safe, keep everyone else safe. You couldn't say the wrong thing. You couldn't do the wrong thing. Like, and when we get drunk, we're like released from all the stuff. That's why it's so addicting, is because finally you're free.
Yeah,
from
and you don't
all
care.
The crap. Yeah.
And I feel like maybe that's what happened to me, because I remember feeling so like, I don't care. Like, I'm just here and I'm going
to have fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to do whatever I want.
Yeah, and I was always so like guarded. I had trust issues. So even with my friends, like I was bubbly and I was kind and I was like how I am, but they would have never thought of anything I ever went through, because I never talked about it. I would just suppress it, and I would just try to be a good friend and a good person. Like I wouldn't, be nasty or anything. And people were like, "Oh, Rose is so sweet. She's such a good friend. Like, oh my gosh, she's so calm." And they were like, "Oh, she's shy." And because I was shy in some way, and I was guarded, very guarded.
You were protecting yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's
walls.
I had a lot of walls, a lot. And I think sometimes today I still do. I struggle with that.
You do.
I do. I do. Okay, fine. I do. She said I do, and I do. Oh, I do. Because I still struggle with that. I'm still healing from that. And it sucks. But when you go through so much, even as an adult, it's like you're still healing. Like once you heal from something, you're like, okay, good. Let's turn the page. I'm healed. That no longer controls me. That no longer has power over me. I feel free. Oh, it doesn't bother me. But then another layer, something else, just like, oh, no. Oh, wait, what? I thought I was good, but no, I'm not, because I feel like now I have to heal from this. Like stuff is constantly like helping you grow and develop into your higher self or your healed self. And in order for you to get there, there's layers, like an onion. Like you have to peel off, and many tears have to just happen.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't even realize that you haven't healed a part of yourself until you're triggered by some crazy thing.
Yes.
And you're like, why am I feeling this way? And then you do the work and you dig in and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
That's still residual hurt from this one situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. It's like a never ending story, and it sucks.
Yeah. I know. One of these days we'll all be perfect and healed. And
Yes, Lord.
But,
yeah. Well, with my mom and her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Well, she got pregnant. It just, crazy stuff just always happens around my birthday. Like, this was New Year's Eve again, and he had just gotten out of control, like, again, with his drinking. And we went to my aunt's house to celebrate New Year's Eve, because New Year's Eve is New Year's Eve, and it's not my birthday. I don't have birthdays on my birthday.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm just turning a number, and that's it. So, this time my mom was pregnant, and she decided to leave because she noticed he was getting out of hand. So, she gets into the passenger seat, and I'm in the back with my sisters, and he's driving. He's trying to drive while he's drunk. Like, he can't even walk, and he's trying to drive. Yeah. So then I was just like, oh my God, like, what do I do? Like, I've always felt like I had to save, or I had to do something about it, especially as a child. And at this point, like, my mom is, they're arguing in the front seat, and he has like this glass of like maybe whiskey or something, but I mean, I don't know my alcohol. I'm not an expert. Sorry, guys. But there was like a cup with like some kind of alcohol, and he's still trying to drink and drive like this with my mom pregnant and me and my sisters. It's ridiculous. Wow. So I'm just like, he starts to like push her, and they're like, I guess, and I'm just like, I get in between, and I'm like, hey, you need to stop. She's pregnant. And he throws his cup of like alcohol on my face. It instantly started burning my eyes. Like, I couldn't even see. And then he punches me in the face. Oh my God. I was so angry. I was so
Wow.
sad. I was just like,
Yeah.
oh. In these moments, after everything I've been through, these are the moments where I have prayed to God and said, why did you not make me a man?
Yeah.
Because I could kick
Yeah.
his butt.
Yeah.
I really wish that growing up, I really felt like I should have just been a male. Because I felt like I wanted to protect my sisters, my mom. I was like, oh, why did I have to be a girl?
Yeah.
Why can't I just be a grown man and just like, oh,
Yeah.
Well, he punched me in the face. It ended there. Like, I didn't talk to my mom. And good thing this was like during Christmas break and I didn't have to go back to school. Because, yeah, like I had like maybe a purple eye right here in between my nose and stuff.
Yeah.
So I tried to cover up with makeup during the week, but my mom would try to talk to me. This is her way of like talking. Do you want to eat? Are you hungry? Do you need anything? And that was her guilt. That was her like trying to
take care of you.
Yeah, and because she felt bad. And I get it, I understand, but I was so angry at her, like for every bad decision that she just kept making with these partners, like, But I mean, obviously now as a mom and an adult, I understand where, her, like what she went through and why she is the way she is, and like, And I understand she thought she was doing her best and she was trying her best.
We all do the best that we can with what we have.
Right.
With the knowledge and the resources and the understanding of the world that we have. And it's hard when your parent doesn't take care of you.
Yeah.
To forgive them for that and to see them from the lens of like, oh, you were broken, sad, hurting, and doing the best that you could. It's hard to see that past your own hurt of how their actions have affected you. But yeah, I feel like that is when I started seeing people in my life from that lens of like, oh, you were doing the best that you could. You were hurt. You were injured.
Yeah.
Like, it helped me heal and forgive them. And I think like forgiving is one of the most healing things that you can do for yourself. It doesn't mean you forget or that you are being okay with what they did to you, but you forgive them and it releases you from the hurt that they caused you. But yeah, I couldn't forgive certain people until I saw them from that lens of like, oh, you were doing the best that you could.
Yeah, and it also helps you like set boundaries. As well. Like I love you, but I'm gonna love you from a distance. Like I can't allow you to continue to hurt me this way. Like I forgive you, but I don't have to like go along with this or be there for the ride, So my baby sister was born. He continued to like get more abusive, be more hurtful. I mean, I'm just happy that he didn't like try to abuse me or whatever, but I just never really trusted him because, I had trust issues and because of his drinking problem, people who drink are unpredictable when they drink. You don't know like what they're going to do. And he would get abusive. He would, I think like, I'm not sure. I can't remember quite well, but if I'm not mistaken, I think he even had like a gun. So at one point he did have a gun and he was just always very abusive. So, by now I was like getting ready to graduate high school and I did graduate high school. I went to community college and I ended up paying for that myself because my parents couldn't help me financially. So I was working and I was like helping them financially. And I was also trying to support myself, because I just wanted to do better. So, but by the second semester, I quit because I couldn't continue to work and provide for my family and like also pay.
It's a lot.
It's very hard.
It is.
It's not easy.
No, and especially you obviously were probably the first person in your family to attempt to go to college.
I was. From
Yeah.
there, my older sister actually went, and she just recently, graduated. So I'm proud of her
Yeah.
because although like I started, she finished. And I think I have another sister who did the same thing as well. So that to me is like, okay, good. Like I'm
You
glad.
paved the way. You made them see that it was
Yeah.
possible to start.
And I'm glad she did it because she also, did it as a single mom.
Yeah.
So I know it's doable, but it's very hard.
It is hard.
It's a lot of sacrificing, and it's just it's a lot of hard work, and when you don't have support, and so I mean, at this time I was going out and drinking, but I wouldn't like drink. Like I never would get drunk like that because I think I knew what alcohol would do to people, and I was traumatized, and I knew what drugs did to you. So I never did drugs. And the only thing I did was like drink a beer or two, but I wouldn't like drink a lot like that. Yeah. And at this point, I had this friend who I really love, and we would go to a club, or she was always out and about, and we were like the opposite because I was more like the quiet and reserved, sweet, calm, because I had all that trauma. So I was always being very careful, like, like I could only open up to certain people at this stage of my life. I was very like, yes, no, one foot in, one foot out, one in, out. Yeah. And my friend was just wild, and she was just beautiful.
Just
and
out there. Like
yes.
Free.
And I love that about her. She was just like, and I feel like that's what attracted me to her because I loved her so much. Like, I just, But one day when we went to this barbecue party her and her friends had, like, she just disappeared on me. And I'm like, where did she go? Well,
Where is she?
Yeah, I went looking for her, and I caught her doing coke. Oh my goodness, that broke my heart. I started crying in front of her. It's just like uncontrollably. Like, my tears just ran. And I'm like, why? Why? I guess because I respected her so much, and I looked up to her, and she was like my good friend. And I'm like, you don't have to do this. Like, you're beautiful. Like, why do you do this? And she told me. And when she would drink and she would do these things, she would cry to me because I guess I was her safe person. And she would say, because my mom hates me, because my dad hates me, because everything they say I am, that's what I have become. And I'm just like, no, you're not. But at this point, every negative thing that her family had said about her or make her feel, that's who she thought she was. Yeah. And she wasn't. She was so smart. Like, she was just beautiful. Yeah. And I was just like, no, you're not. But she was so deep into stuff that I couldn't even help her. Yeah. And that always just breaks my heart. Like, I just had to cut that friendship off. Not because she was influencing me or anything, but because I couldn't stand to see that. Yeah. I just couldn't. So
you can't save an addict until they're ready to save themselves. And it hurts, but a lot of times you have to take care of yourself by walking away. And that's not easy when you love them.
No, because, she was one of my good friends. Maybe one of my only friends then. Like, we just bonded, and we just connected. And I guess through the trauma, through that. And, well, I ended up moving again to Texas, because I was sick and tired of living with my mom and her toxic marriage. I came to live with my dad. My dad and I argue a lot. I thought it would be different because at this point, I had become a Christian. I had restored my relationship with God. I had gone to church camps, with one of my good friends. And so I just had like a different like perspective. I'm like, no, I'm mature now. I'm not like that teenager I used to be with you and my dad. I'm sure a relationship will be better. No, my dad was still drinking. I still had issues with my dad, and if anything, I had come back and I just felt I wasn't myself again. It's like every time I come to live with my dad, I bring all that trauma and I'm trying to heal and I'm trying to find myself again, and I don't know who I am. So it's like I'm weird and awkward and quiet and reserved again. So it's just weird how that works. So I started fighting again with my dad because my dad like just wanted to tell me what to do. And I didn't want to have that. I didn't want people telling me what to do. I mean, you know. So
you're like, I've taken care of myself. I've kept other people alive.
Yeah, like
I don't need someone telling me what to do.
Yeah, like you didn't take care of me. Like you're just my dad. Like you just have the title of being my dad. Yeah. Well, I remember one of my sister's boyfriend's friends saying, "Why is Rosa so weird? Like she's so weird. Like sometimes she's happy and she's good, and sometimes she's just like off, like quiet and mean and like angry, and she just cries." And that's what it was. So at some point, I thought I was bipolar. I thought I was like, I would hear them say these things. I would hear them talking, and my sister would be like, well, Daniel thinks you're weird, like you're bipolar, like he thinks you're crazy. And I'm like, well, I don't like him either. You know? But it's because I was like trying to find myself. I was a young adult.
Yeah.
And I had so much trauma. Yes. I wasn't bipolar. I wasn't any of that.
No.
Although I did get diagnosed with depression at the age of 8. And I had to take medication, but that's because I feel like it was the part of all the trauma that I went through.
That was situational depression. That was because clinical depression. Yeah.
Oh, so I was like, man, there really has to be something wrong with me.
Yeah.
I really thought that. I'm going to pause here. Because before my sisters, before I went to live with my dad, at some point I wanted to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Because I thought my life was so bad.
Yeah.
Because of everything that me and my sisters had gone through, I was just like, oh, I hate my life. I tried to kill myself in front of my sisters. Like I tried to grab a knife and just like, cut my wrist. I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I felt like I wanted to, but then when I got to it, like I wasn't brave enough to do it because I saw my sisters and they were looking at me and I said, this is not how I want them to remember me.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, like this is not how it should be or how it should end. Yeah. So
it's not that you weren't brave enough. It's that you were strong enough to overcome the urge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it was just ugly. Yeah. So going from like that child who was not allowed to speak her mind, who everyone would just tell her to shut up.
Yeah.
Don't say that. Why can't you just not talk?
Yeah.
Calladita te ves más bonita. You know? Mm-hmm. It's like, you're the problem child.
Yeah.
You know, like you're the child who just. Well, and all of that, like at some point, I did think I was bipolar. I thought I was crazy. People around me made me feel like I was crazy. Mm-hmm. But I was just like, I needed help. I needed healing.
Yeah.
Well, at this point, like I said, I had become a Christian. And this helped me a lot because I was like, no, there has to be a different way. Like, I need you, Jesus. Like, I need you to, like, heal me from this trauma. Yeah. I want to be better.
Yeah.
I deserve better. Like, you know? So, my dad and I would argue. I moved back with my mom again. At this time, I'm already 21.
Yeah.
And I did something so stupid. I got married. Yep. Oh my God. I said yes to the ring and yeah. Well, I got married at 21 with one of my good friends from high school. He was a safe friend. Yeah. And I thought I loved him, but I didn't love him the way that I should. But I love our friendship and I love how he was with me because he was a safe person.
Yeah.
Because he understood me and we just, I don't know. I married him and I thought that it could be like arranged marriage. Mm-hmm. Like when people just marry somebody and they grow to love them. And because they're good people, right? Well, that didn't work out. I was married for a month and then I got separated and I got divorced. Well, While I was getting divorced, I met my daughter's father. And I was not taking him serious at all because I was going through divorce. And I was just like, oh, I do not want anything with him. Like, I just want to have fun, like, you know. But,
Yeah.
well, I got pregnant. And when I did, I couldn't believe it. First of all, I didn't think I was going to be a good mom because I didn't know what it was to have a good mom because my mom wasn't like the perfect mom. So when I found out I was pregnant, I was just like, holy cow, like, what am I going to do now? Like, I'm going to be a mom, like, you know, and then her father, like, I didn't want to be with him because we were always on and off because I had already seen all the red flags that I had seen in all my mom's relationships. And I knew I didn't want that for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I felt like I had to try to work things out with him. Also because I was afraid of him. Because he would say things to me like, if you're not going to be with me, like, you can't have this child. I will pay for the abortion. I will. Yeah. He's like, and I would say, no, like, that's not something I believe in. Like, I'm sorry. No, I'm not. I don't want to be with you. And he's like, fine, then I'm going to take the baby out of you. And stuff like, yeah. He was very, like, verbally abusive, like, emotional, mentally. And I was so afraid of him, like, so afraid of him because at this point, I knew what people were capable of, whether they were drinking or not. I knew how nasty people could be.
Yeah.
So I was so afraid, and I fear for my life, and I fear for my baby. And it could have been also like the defense mechanism that women have when they're pregnant, that like everything's a red flag.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. So
they sound like some pretty big red flags to me.
Yeah, they were. They were. Now I know they were, and I should have listened. Yeah. But I wanted to give my daughter the family that I never had. So I tried working things out with him for like a year. My daughter was like a year and a half when I finally left him because things were not getting better. If anything, I had anger issues at this point because I would bottle everything up because I felt like my words, like, it didn't matter what I wanted. It didn't matter like how I felt because people, you know, growing up made me feel that way.
Yeah.
Like I was crazy, like I was being rational, like I was being special, like I was asking for too much. Well, I finally left him. And then, it was like, when I left him, I knew that I made the right decision only because I felt peace and because I didn't want my daughter to go through the same things I did. And I felt like me having my daughter was like a huge eye opener to be like, hey, you got to do better than your mom. You got to do better than your dad. Like, you know, and
you have to stop the cycle.
Yeah. And I mean, looking at my daughter, I was like, how can I not? Like, oh my God. Like, I will look at her sometimes and just cry. Like you're mine. Like, I get to raise you. I get to love you. Like, I get to protect you.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I needed to, like, protect her from everything and anyone. And even if it was a fly, like, you know, like, it was just like, oh my God. She was the one that, she just changed my life. Like, you know, how they say that kids save your life. Yeah. So from there on, I was like, oh my God, I have to be better. And I became better because of her. And that's why I left her dad, because we deserve better. She deserved better.
Yeah.
I ended up getting with my husband now. I knew him since I was like 60 years old. So, yeah, I got pregnant with him. With him, I saw some red flags too with his family. But I loved him. I knew he was a good guy. He is a good person, you know?
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? Okay. Like, I can't be like this. Like, I have to work things out because I'm pregnant. And I can't keep running. Like, I can't be having kids with anyone just like not working it out, you know?
Yeah.
So I did for the longest. I tried working things out. And, you know, we had our ups and downs. And the reason why we had our ups and downs is because no relationship is perfect.
Yeah.
And because when you go into a relationship, you bring baggage with you.
Mm-hmm.
He brought his baggage. I brought my baggage.
Yep.
So our baggage just like
compiled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a great big party, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like there's my demons, there's your demons. Yeah. Now they're going to have a big old demon party and just wreak havoc.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But one thing I love about all this is that I feel like I'm healing a lot in this relationship.
Yeah.
Just like he's healing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's working on some things and I'm working on myself too. It's been like a huge thing. Like, okay, if he doesn't heal from this and I don't heal from this, we're both going to like, we can end this.
Yeah.
And it's going to be like this in another relationship with someone else.
Yeah. You can't just jump from one relationship to another without healing yourself. Because it's just going to show up in the next relationship.
One thing I love about my husband is that he doesn't have an alcohol problem.
Yeah.
So that to me is a huge like thing. Mm-hmm. Because he doesn't drink like that or mistreats me or the kids. So that's like a big thing for me. Like I didn't want to end up with someone who had like any kind of alcohol, you know, addiction or drugs or anything. Mm-hmm. So for me, I was like, okay. Yeah, and, you know, so when him and I, like every relationship we go through, I guess the 7-year itch.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep.
It really was 7 years. Yeah, it really was 7 years. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know it was such a thing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's when you're like been working things out and it's just like piles up and you're just like, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, we got separated and through that separation, oh my God, I had never in my life craved alcohol like I did then.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I really just wanted to get wasted.
Yeah.
And just nasty wasted.
Yeah.
And I went to the liquor store and I bought me I'm not great with alcohol. I don't know what anything is. So I went to the alcohol store and I bought me a margarita mix. I bought me a margarita. And I said, I'm just going to put this in some ice and I'm going to drink that. And I'm just going to and I bought 2 or 3 bottles of that.
Oh, Lord. That stuff is dangerous.
Is it? Because I didn't even open the bottle. I did not open the bottle. I did not. I bought the bottle, and it's funny because he was talking about this yesterday, and he's like, oh, yeah, I remember when you were trying to be like, I'm going to drink, and I saw in the bank statement that you went to an alcohol beverage store, and he was like, what is she buying there? Like, we were not together, but he was like still looking through everything that I was doing, and he's like, what is she doing? Like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, whatever, Rosie. Like, you're gonna, okay, whatever. You do you, right?
Yeah.
Well, and he's like, yeah, a bottle that you didn't even open. Because at this time, I was like, we're not getting back together. I don't want to be with him. I deserve better. Because we had a toxic relationship. Yeah. And it was because I didn't know what a healthy relationship was. Mm-hmm. I was never taught how to be in a relationship. I didn't know what a good wife should be like. He didn't know either because although he came from like his parents being together, their parents never dated. Their mom was just always cooking, cleaning. Their dad was just a provider. He never helped her. So it was like that typical Mexican macho relationship where a woman has to be a certain way and the man just is and that's it. Yeah. And I didn't like that because I just didn't like that. Yeah. So we would argue and fight all the time because I felt like he was trying to control me just like everybody else in my life. Yeah. Because my mom at some point was very controlling and manipulative. Mm-hmm. She was narcissistic parent. Yeah. You know? So I was just like, no, you're not going to do this to me. I'm a grown woman. Like, I don't have to be with you, you know?
Yeah.
So, anyways, long story short, we couldn't, be together anymore because it just became too much. So we split up, and there were talks about divorce. And at that time, I went through like, oh my God, a huge breakthrough because I had already baptized myself as a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And I had started working in a Christian preschool where I'm still working.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, like this is so horrible. Like not a lot of people knew that we were split up. And I think I kept it like hidden only because of the fear of judgment.
Yeah.
Because people were going to be like, oh my God, that's Rosa. Like, here we go again. Like, she got divorced. Then she was engaged and she had a child, and here she goes again. And now it's like over and over. Like,
yeah,
people always made me feel like I've always felt rejection. I've always felt like I was crazy because people in my life always made me feel like I was crazy, like I was trouble.
Yeah.
When I wasn't,
Yeah.
So I was so ashamed to share that with anybody, even like people in my church.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad, I'm not even sure if he even knows, because I hid it. I was like, no, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But my mom knew. And this time my mom and I would talk because I called her and I was like, hey, I feel like I am so messed up. I feel like I'm reliving everything that you relived.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate it. Like, I hate it.
Yeah.
And she's like, I am so sorry for everything I put you through. She's like, I hate that you're going through a lot of things. And you went through a lot of things with me. And I feel like I messed you up. From all my daughters, I messed you up the most because from all my daughters, you're the one who's always been with me. And I was like, I know. I do feel like I am messed up because of this, And I feel like I know this is my story. This is my marriage. This is my life. But a lot of it's because of what I went through with you.
Mm-hmm.
And, we just cried and we just talked. And that was like a healing point for me too.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever when I started praying and I started, just healing from that breakup, from that separation actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like in this stage of like acceptance of like, you know what, I messed up too. I didn't cheat on him while we were together. But there was other kinds of hurt, abuse, and it wasn't right either from his side or mine. And I was like, it is what it is, like I just want to heal. I want to be happy and I deserve better. He deserves better too. I don't hate him. It is what it is,
Mm-hmm.
So that's when he came, he was like, hey, I think we should talk. We should work things out. And, we got back together. And he realized that the bottles I had bought were still in the fridge. I had not opened those bottles. Like, I couldn't. It was just like, he was like, oh, okay. And I said, okay, I can explain. I said, I was trying to get wasted. And I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't. Yeah. And the reason why I couldn't do it is because of my children.
Yeah.
I would be, and because of all the trauma I saw and I experienced, and I know what alcohol can do and drugs to people, I didn't want that for myself. I didn't want that for my kids. I wanted to, and to this day, I'm like, no, it just stops here.
Yeah.
It stops here. Like, I don't want my children to grow up and heal from these things. Like, I don't, because I am an adult in my 30s healing from my childhood trauma when I shouldn't be, when I should be living my best life. I should be having fun. I shouldn't be going through this. I don't want them to go through that because I know what it's like.
Yeah.
So I was never a big drinker anyway. Like I never was like, oh, I'm gonna drink and I'm just gonna,
Yeah.
I was never like that. So that I have a drink, like you said, I have a drink here and there, but I know my limits also because I can't handle my liquor. One beer or two beers, I'm out. I'm good.
Yeah.
Like I'm just so, I guess, buzz or even like one sugary, fruity drink.
Yeah.
I feel it like instantly like that. Like I can't handle it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I've had times where I've gotten drunk and trust me, it's not something that I look forward to.
Yeah.
That I'm like, I mean, what's the point of drinking and you're going to have fun when you can't remember that fun? Like it's not safe. It's not a good thing. So for me, I was just like, no. And also like, I was like, okay, it stops here with me. Like I'm healing so my children can heal. And I don't want this for them. They deserve better. I don't want to be an alcoholic. I don't do drugs. So I'm always just careful. Like even when I go around my family and they're drinking, because I'm probably one of the only Christians in my family as well. So it's very hard when you don't have like that family support where they're like, they think or they make you feel like you're different, you're special because you're walking with God or you're like not living like they're living. Yeah. So I just sort of feel like, uncomfortable sometimes, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with like not drinking to bond or not drinking to like just, to feel accepted or just not talked about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I do have a drink here and there.
Yeah.
And I stop because I don't trust myself and I don't trust anybody. And I don't want my kids to ever see me drunk.
Yeah.
Because I imagine it sometimes and it would break my heart. It would really break my heart. And I don't want to do that to them.
Yeah.
So I just...
Yeah. Because alcohol, it makes you unpredictable and it makes your children unsure of whether or not they can trust you.
Yeah.
And you experienced that day in, day out in your childhood. And like you're paving the way for your kids not like I see the sticker. You have the sticker. I have stickers that say I'm healing from my past so my kids don't have to. And she has it in her notebook. And I made that sticker because we can stop the cycle. We can stop that part of our family history can stop with us.
Yeah.
And I think it's making the decisions that you're going to set boundaries around alcohol with your kids and with yourself.
Yeah.
So because I truly believe that if we didn't have alcohol, a lot of the injustices in the world would not happen.
No.
Like if we addressed the true root of the problem, the mental health issue that's going on, the sexual sadisticness that's going on underneath the surface. Like if we addressed those issues, I bet if we dug back into the past of your mom's boyfriend and the past of your uncle, there was some sort of trauma in them as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's just this cycle that perpetuates itself of like, they were traumatized, so they traumatized people.
Yeah.
And they were traumatized, so they would traumatize people.
Yeah.
And then you have this never-ending cycle of trauma and abuse that just doesn't stop. But what you're doing is saying, no more.
Yeah.
Like, I won't allow alcohol and drugs into the lives of my children as a protective mechanism to make sure that they don't have that risk. They're still at risk, for in whatever. Like, you can raise your kids up perfect and with no outside influence, and they're still going to get introduced to drugs, alcohol, whatever. Like,
but what is really important here is like what examples you're giving to your kids.
Yeah.
Like, what are you what seed are you planting in them?
Exactly. You've got to set that foundation for them. So they have something safe to come back to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is why I am healing, and I have healed from a lot of things, because I don't want to put that on them.
Yeah.
That's work that I need to do. That's not work they need to do. And I have these conversations with my sister sometimes, like when we talk about our childhood, where we're like, remember when we used to pull each other's hair, like fight? Oh my God. And and then we just get quiet and we're like, yeah, man, like we went through a lot of stuff. And then we're like, oh my God, like, wow, we are really, really good for, like, we're not perfect, but oh my God, we went through a lot of stuff that we could have really gone a different path.
Mm-hmm.
We could have been somewhere right now. We could have done other things. We could have been on drugs. We could have, just Lord knows where we would have been.
And most kids in the all situation do grow up to have lifelong alcohol problems, lifelong drug problems, problems with the law, in prison, prostitutes. That is the typical outcome for children who have the upbringing that you and your sisters had.
Yeah. And honestly, the only thing I can come up with on why we didn't choose that path is because at the time when the abuse started with my sister, there was this church. It's a Indiana church where they would send like buses and pick up kids every Sunday and take them to church. It was a Christian church. And we would go, and God was there.
He had his hand on y'all.
And when I think of that, I'm like just so overwhelmed, because God always had a plan, especially for me.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, God, you love me so much that you're here, that it doesn't matter what I do, or like how good of a parent or bad of a parent, or everything I've done in the past, no matter like this world wants to destroy me, wants to remind me how I'm not good enough, of all the bad things I've done. It wants to shut me off. It doesn't want me to speak.
Yeah.
And I constantly find myself struggling with that. Like whenever I want to say something, I always second guess myself.
Yeah, you almost didn't do this podcast.
I didn't. I struggled and I prayed, and it's just like,
yeah.
But a few days ago, lately I haven't been able to sleep. I've been having such anxiety, so I've been getting up in the middle of the night, and I just pray and I ask God, and I was praying about this podcast, and God was like, yes, you're gonna talk about the everything you've been through, and because of alcohol and how all of that, but you're gonna talk about all the stuff that I have brought you out of for my glory. And it's all for God's plans. Like God has like big plans for me and my sisters. And I'm so glad that for those people that were there to help us, to guide us, who planted that seed of God in our hearts. Because if we wouldn't have had God, if we didn't know about God at such an early age right now, we would have been somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's really like crazy to think that I wouldn't be sitting here. I don't know where I would be, and I don't know. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
And it's all because of God. Like God was just always there, and he will always be there. Like I said, when the world wants to destroy you, break you down, burn you alive, God is there to destroy, to restore you, to help you, to guide you, to give you peace, to forgive you, to give you forgiveness for those people that have hurt you.
Yeah.
He is there to just give you joy and love. He's there to fulfill every void that you have, like the sadness, the loneliness. And I feel like this is the reason why a lot of these people in my life have done drugs, have like had alcohol problems, because they've had this void. They've had this loneliness, that had this brokenness, they had this
shame, regret,
anger.
yeah.
And they tried to suppress it with alcohol because maybe alcohol made them forget or feel a little bit better. But in the end, it just exposed it. It's not helping them heal. It's hurting their body, their lives, it's not a positive thing. It's not a good thing.
I always say alcohol doesn't fix anything. No. It just saves it for another day.
Yeah.
And multiplies it in the process.
And I knew that if I drink those margarita mix things, I knew that it was not going to fix my issues.
With your marriage,
no,
with yourself.
It wasn't.
Nothing.
It wasn't. Yeah. It was just going to get me wasted and knock out. Like I would
and be hungover the next day.
Yeah, and then and I would try it again until I because it just alcohol is like it's like a sugar pill. Because it makes you think that it's like gonna help you, but it doesn't help you.
Yeah,
it makes things worse. It's not gonna fix your problems. It's not gonna make you a better person. It's not gonna heal you. It's not gonna do anything good to you at all.
No.
Yeah. And I guess it can be expensive because I was like,
it's very expensive. It's very expensive. Yeah.
But I have good habits, good things that I do to keep me out of trouble. I guess you can say busy. I'm always busy, so I feel like that's a trauma response too. I stay busy so that I'm not constantly I guess, or go back into certain memories or certain things.
Yeah, it is. It's a defense mechanism. You keep yourself busy to keep you from going back and having to revisit that trauma.
Yeah.
Which can be a good thing and a bad thing. You have to have balance because there's people who use busyness as a way to avoid the past. But you've done the work. You've done some healing. And so busyness can also be a good thing because you're filling your time. I see your Instagram stuff. You're filling your time with fun stuff that you're doing with your daughter, and you're going to the park, and so it's not like your busyness is unfruitful.
No.
Yeah.
I have decided to keep myself doing healthy things. I work out. I go to church. I do fun things with my children. And I do all these things because they bring me peace, they bring me joy, and it's also okay, I get to do these things now because I don't know what else to do with myself. I don't know how to have bad habits.
Yeah.
I don't know how to, because I never had them. I just had a lot of trauma. So for me, it's I stay busy because I have such hunger to just be better, the best version of myself, mentally, emotionally, physically. I just want to be everything for my kids that I wish I've had.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's, I think, so having that mentality can drive you to staying in bad situations like you did with your daughter's dad. It can drive you to staying in bad marriages. It can drive you to making not great choices because you're trying so hard to not be what your past was, that it can keep you trapped in bad situations.
Yeah.
Or you can use that power like you are now in saying, I'm not going to go back to who I was. I'm not going to repeat my mom's cycles. I'm going to choose a different path. And that looks like this.
Yeah.
It looks like making the hard choices to separate from your husband so that you could both do some healing. Yeah. And you did.
We did. We both did.
Yeah. It means making the hard choice of leaving your daughter's dad and leaving that family that you wanted for her and leaving that quote unquote security blanket of I'm gonna have the happy family even if fill in the blank. You left that and you made a choice of I would much rather raise my daughter alone than to raise her in an unhealthy situation.
Yeah. And it's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It's hard to do this.
Yes, it's just scary to be a single parent. It's scary to do that because the future's never, you don't know. You don't know.
Yeah. What you know of single motherhood is boyfriends in and out of the house.
Yeah.
Not having enough money.
Yeah.
Not having enough food. Like, that's what you know of single motherhood. So to intentionally walk away from security, financial, not physical, mental, or emotional security, but perhaps financial security with a man and walk away from that and actively choose single motherhood, that was like, from the outside, some people might say, well, that was stupid. You walked away from 2 incomes, you walked away from a house, you walked away from whatever.
Yeah.
But you were making a choice to break that cycle and say, I would rather do it alone.
Yeah.
Than to stay in this unhealthy place. And so, yeah, it just, choosing to break the cycle can take you in 2 different places. And being busy can too. But I really do think that I always tell people like that are trying to stop drinking or doing drugs that they need to stay busy. And it's like, it's a very fine line between just trading one addiction for another and actually like using the busyness as a way to reroute your life in a positive way.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what you're doing with your daughter, you're showing her how to have fun, both of your kids, but your daughter is older. Showing them how to have fun without drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Showing them that there are other things to do in the world than just sit around and bond over drinking.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard because, and this is one of the conversations I also have with my sisters. Like, we're like, you know how easy it would be for us to be like our parents? Like, so easy because that's all we've seen. That's all we have been taught.
That's all you know. Yeah.
So it's just like, it's so much harder not to be like them. And it has also been like a learning experience because now I'm like, I know that I'm doing so much better than they were or did. Yeah. And it's a lot. It's really hard because I don't have any guidance.
Yeah.
I don't have anyone to be like, yeah, you're doing a good job. And sometimes you feel like a failure.
Yeah.
And I just feel like in general, as a parent, you're always going to feel like that.
Yeah.
But especially when you don't have those good examples of what a healthy marriage should be like or what a healthy family should be like, it's really hard because you're learning as you go.
Yeah.
So it is very important to like get some type of like guidance or help or community. And I feel like that's what I have found like in you and other of our friends through these groups, these support groups.
Yeah.
And also church. God.
You have to, I just did an assignment. It was like, you're the sum of your 5 closest friends.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And so like when you are trying to model motherhood and model a happy marriage and model all these things to your children, like you have to surround yourself with a few people who are also doing it, who are further along in the game than you are. Because I'm the same way. I didn't know what a healthy marriage was supposed to look like. I didn't know what a sober, happy, healthy mom looked like. I didn't have a dad because my dad died when I was 8. Like, so I don't know these things. Like, I've never been taught how to have an open, honest, healthy, sober conversation with someone. When family secrets are divulged in our family, it's because someone is drunk and the emotional lid pops off and it just billows out of them. Yeah. So I didn't know how to have a happy, healthy, hard conversation with someone of like anything, like sex talk, drug talk, alcohol talk, like with my kid. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to do any of
No.
that. No
Yeah.
one modeled it for me. So it is like, it's hard. I think it's harder for us.
Yeah, it is. It's really hard. But you can get help.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like books help, like praying helps, like
Mm-hmm.
getting even like psychological help.
Yeah, therapist, whoever.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Like get a group, a support group. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people out there that you can learn from and, you know, who actually have a good, healthy relationship. And there's a lot of people that when I talk to them about what I've been through, like, they're just like, oh, wow. Like, I feel like their trauma was probably not getting the snack they wanted and they threw a tantrum when they were
Mm-hmm.
young. Like, they don't know what it's like and they'll never understand.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people who have been through things that can relate to you and can help you because they've been there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you need help, there's a lot of like help out there. You
Yeah.
just have to look for it. Like drinking, it's not going to solve your problems. Drugs are not going to like help you at all. They destroy you.
Mm-hmm.
But you can find loving people. There's safe people out there. There's teachers. There's a lot of help. You just have to ask for it and it's okay to like, you know.
It's okay to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's okay to open up. Like, I feel like that's where our groups come in, is like we intentionally make it a safe place for everyone that comes in.
And I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And we can be open and honest with each other and we can just let it all hang out. And I think it's important for everyone to have that kind of safe circle of girls, guys, whatever, where they can come and just lay it bare.
Yeah.
You have to have someone that you can show up. I always say makeup off, bra off, PJs on, and just
let it be.
just let it be. Like,
yeah.
But from a soul perspective of like, just come and just bear it all and say, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And I need help navigating this part of my life.
And that's okay. And that's what I feel like that's what I love about these groups is that you can be yourself and there's no judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can just, it's okay. Like this is a safe place. And that's what I feel like I try to become for others as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like a safe person, like, hey, like, it's okay. Like you can be yourself. Like I always try to be that. And, I get asked sometimes like why I am a preschool teacher. Like I love teaching. I didn't even know like I was going to be a teacher. I thought about it once because I always said I was going to be an artist because I am a very creative person. I always said, I'm going to be an artist when I grow up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because art helped me cope with all that.
Yeah.
Drawing, coloring helped me cope with that. Those were like healthy things habits, I guess you can say,
mm-hmm.
that I picked up at an early age, and even cooking. So I love cooking because I love eating,
mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So those are all those things that are healthy habits that keep you out of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know I was going to become a teacher, but being a teacher, I'm not like a elementary school teacher. I'm a preschool teacher. That has helped me heal too,
mm-hmm.
because I feel like I'm a child.
Mm-hmm.
Inside. I am so playful and I'm so goofy and I'm just, there, and I forget I'm an adult sometimes.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. I feel childish, literally childish. And it's because I didn't have that.
Yeah.
It was like my childhood was cut short.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It's your inner child finally getting to play
mm-hmm.
and enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I heal from that too.
Yeah.
I have found healing. And I love those kids. I love what I do because I see them and I'm like, oh my God, like I can help you. I can make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a safe adult for you. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I feel like that's what we all need to be, safe people for others.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thank you for being a safe friend.
Yes.
I love
Oh,
you.
I love you. Oh, yes. I know people, I always tell people, like, I am an open book. I lay myself bare.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so much healing to be had when other people feel safe coming to you. They see your brokenness and you shining anyway.
Yeah.
And that makes them feel like they can come to you broken and not be ashamed.
I recently learned that because I would put up a lot of walls. I think, and even till today, like if people see me, they're like, oh, she's so put together. Like she's got it, you know? But once I open up, they're like, what? You've been through that? And I mean, I don't always open up to people like that. I think it just like, some people just bring it out of you and some people don't. And that's okay. But find people that you feel comfortable with, that you can talk to, that you can go to for advice, that you can go to for prayer. That's all. That's really important to have around, and have your 5 people. Like people who are gonna like pray for you, people are gonna motivate you. And you told me something recently that I was like, yeah, you're right. It's like, it's not about who's around you, it's about who's there for you. And it's so true. Because there can be so many people around you, but not everyone there is for you and is going to help you be a better person. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. Okay, so if there were a girl out there like you,
oh, I hope not, but I'm sure there is,
young and in a bad situation, and she's sticking around because she doesn't want to have the same life that she had growing up, what would you tell her?
I would tell her my story. Because it's the only way I know how to help her. Because if she knew everything I've been through, she can relate. She can see that there's hope at the end of the tunnel. That her life doesn't end there. That's a chapter that will close. That this is a season. Tomorrow you're going to be somewhere else. And you're going to look back and you're going to be like, wow. You're going to grow from that. And you have to strive to be better than what was given to you, than what you're going through right now, because you deserve that. And you were born and created for greatness.
Yeah. Oh. Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing your story.
Well, thank you so much for letting me cry here.
Yes.
For letting me be here.
This is the therapy table. This is where we let it all out.
Yeah.
This is where we let it all out. Well, thank you for listening. And I plan on having more stories like Rosie's out the rest of this year and into next season. So stay tuned. And until then, be well, be kind, and may you find some joy this week. Bye.